everyone, it's Fanny here, and today we are back with another tutorial. Today we are going to try to create this simple landing page. As you can see, it's a PNG, so let's try to recreate it using HTML, CSS, and some Bootstrap. So it's pretty much a simple landing page, and also we can make it a single-paged website for an SEO agency. First thing is I created a folder called Coding Project. So inside the Coding Project, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name my folder We SEO Landing Page. So after creating this folder, inside the folder we are going to create subfolders. The first folder is images. This is where we shall have all the images we have, all the images that we shall use in here. And then we are going to create another folder, and we're going to call this folder Assets. As I mentioned, we are going to use Bootstrap, so we shall place our Bootstrap files in the Assets folder. So I already have Bootstrap downloaded, so I'll pretty much go to my Downloads folder. So you can see I have the Bootstrap folder here, so I'm just going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it in my Assets folder, and then I'll simply rename it just to Bootstrap. So when you open this folder, you should be able to see CSS and JavaScript files. Now you might be wondering, what is Bootstrap? Bootstrap is basically a CSS library. And then inside our images folder, we are going to add some images here. I already downloaded these images. So you can see I have some SVGs. And when you look at these SVGs, all these SVGs were got from Andro, and then just some normal images. So now we are going to create our last folder, and we are going to call it Styles. And inside this style, we are going to have all the custom CSS in. Now that we have finished our folder structure, let's move on and open this project using our favorite code editor, which is VS Code. So I'm going to open my VS Code. So after opening VS Code, we are going to open our file. We're gonna go to open folder. We are going to navigate to our desktop and open the folder that we created for the landing page. As you can see, we have all the folders here, the assets, which has Bootstrap, the images that has images, and the styles, which is still empty. And then we are going to create a new file, and we are going to call it index.html. Let me close this. Now in our index, we are going to create an HTML structure. We are going to press Shift exclamation mark and press enter. So now you can see we have our HTML structure. So we are going to change the title to We SEO Agency. And then below the title, we are going to link our Bootstrap. So how do we link our Bootstrap? We just use the link tag, and then we reference our Bootstrap files, which is in Assets, Bootstrap, CSS, and then we link the bootstrap.min, the minified version, .css. And then we are also going to link our CSS, but we haven't created the CSS, so we are going to create our CSS file, and we are going to call it styles.css. Though it's still empty, let's link it as well. So we shall use the same format of link, then we link styles.css. Now this styles.css shall have our CSS files. Now that's all we need. And also we need to link some scripts from the Bootstrap. So we are just going to put it down here. Remember, Bootstrap has two files in it. So we have CSS and JS. So in the scripts, we are going to link the JS file. So we shall write our script tag and then get the source, which is assets, Bootstrap. We go to JS, and then we link the bootstrap.min.js. And that is all that we have. Now, the first thing is we can't see anything yet. So let me first open this with Live Server. You can see we simply just have an empty page. So now it's time for us to start coding our landing page. Remember, we are following this format. We have the navigation, we have the hero section, we have the partner section, we have the About Us feature section, we have the services section, blog section, contact us, and the footer. So without wasting so much time, let's start with the first section, which is the navigation. We are going to head over to Get Bootstrap, and then here we go to Docs. So when you're in Docs, we are going to just look for navigation. So we have nav bars here. We have the examples of nav bars here. So we are going to pick one example. Let's pick this one and then customize it. To choose this, we are just going to copy this. Click copy and then come here, and I'm gonna write this as nav bar. Let me put that comment. and then paste it there. So when we go check, you can see this is what we have. So we are basically going to customize this to make sure that it comes out like something like that. This is our nav bar. First thing you notice that it starts from in here. So what we are going to do is we are going to place it in a container. You can see this has a container fluid. So what we are going to do is we are going to remove the container fluid class and just leave it as container. And then we are going to change the BG light to BG white. And then we are going to add another class called fixed top. So that when it is being scrolled, it remains at the top. Then we are going to wrap this entire navigation in a container fluid. So I'm going to create a div here and I'm going to give it a class of container fluid p0 and I give it a BG of light. So I'm going to close this div just after the navigation. So let's write here navbar, and so that you're easy to follow along, navbar starts. This is our navbar, so we need to customize the contents in the navbar. So what are we going to do? You can also see it's already responsive. Yeah, let's quickly customize the contents. So first thing, we have the navbar brand here. We are going to change it to our brand, which is we SEO. So we are going to separate the words with a span tag. So I'm gonna do span and then put the word SEO inside the span, and I'm going to give this span a class of text primary. So the next thing we are going to change is the nav items, the links. So we have home, we have about us. So we are going to link this to home. We shall create an ID later. Then we have about us. We shall link an ID about us. Let's separate it with a hyphen. Then let's move the class disabled and change this to services and also link it to services. And then lastly, we are going to create blog. So we are just going to copy this, Ctrl C, and then paste it there. And then rename this to blog. Rename this to blog. Let's paste it again and then rename it to contact us, and then also change this to contact. Now lastly, we have this form, and we don't need this form. You can see we have this form here. We don't need this, but we need the button. So what we are going to do is we are going to remove the input here, remove the form role, and then just change this to book a call, and then change the button to BTN primary. So this is what we have. Now let us go and add some custom CSS so that we can let it look exactly like that. So I'll go to styles.css, and then I'm going to override some of these Bootstrap classes since we are going to reuse it. For example, the class BG light, I'm gonna give it a background color of EDEFF6. Now since overriding a Bootstrap class, we shall add the word important to it. Then next is we are going to style the navbar brand. I'm gonna get the Bootstrap class navbar brand and then give it a color of 828AF7. Now you also notice that the brand has a different font. So what are we going to do? We are going to look for this font. So we simply go to Google Fonts and we are going to get this font. You can see it's Amaranth. It's called Amaranth and Open Sans. So what we are going to do, we are going to click import and then copy this and then bring it to our CSS. So let's just put it up here at the top. But since we are already in a CSS file, we are going to remove the style. So we just have import. So it's fetching the file from the Google Fonts. So let's also give the navbar brand. Now we can add the font by using these CSS rules. So I'm just going to copy this CSS rule and then paste it there. And here we have it. You can see our font has taken effect. Now next is we are going to have to state the fonts in here for all the H1s or for all the headings and for all the labels. We are going to have the same font family. Now every time we get this, now our CSS will be automatically applied. Now next for our navigation, we are going to style our next class, which is basically the nav item. So let's align items, flex start, justify content, space evenly. And then lastly, we have the nav link. We're gonna give it a font family, Open Sans sans serif. Just give it a color of black, which is 000. Sorry, it's hash 000. And then let's give it a font weight of 400. This is what we have. Now let's style this button as well. So let's put the button styles here. We are still going to override the Bootstrap class for BTN primary. So we're gonna give it a background color. Since we are overriding, we add the word important. And then also, since we are overriding the color, which is white, let's add it. Let's make it important. Then also the font family, open sans serif. And then the button border, let's give it none. Then padding 10 pixels, 40 pixels. So this is basically the button style, and you can see now the button is adjusted. So now I think we have finished our navigation area. So let's move on to the next section, which is the hero section, which contains this image and this. So I'm gonna go back to index.html, and just still within the div, we're going to create a hero section. So we shall create a div, we shall give it a class of container. Watch out for spellings. Vertical padding of 5, and then we're gonna give it an ID home. Now you'll be wondering why we are giving it an ID home, so that it links to the IDs that we have created here, home. After this, we are going to create another div, and we're gonna give it a class called row. Also give it a vertical padding of 5. And then inside the row, we are going to create 2 columns. We shall create div and give it a class called MD6. Let's also give it a vertical padding of 5. After that, we create a H1 with a class display with a text. So our text is going to be boost your online presence. And then we shall create a paragraph, give it a class lead, and we're going to write some content in that paragraph. So I'm gonna paste the content there. And then this was the first column. So after this, we are going to create another column. Sorry, before creating another column, let's add a call to action below the paragraph, which is basically a link. For now, we are not linking it to anything. We give it a class of BTN primary, and then we schedule consultation. So after that, let's continue. Let's create this div, give it a call class MD6, and this is basically going to have our hero image. So we shall add the image tag, and then the source to the image, which is basically images. Then we have our image, which is websearch.svg, and then we give it a class of img fluid. So guys, this is our hero section, and let me write a comment here. Hero section ends. So you can see this is what we have. Now we need to style this a bit. Let's push this a bit down. And also let's paste this. So we're gonna go to here and just add a space, and we are going to add this in the class vertical padding of 5 for this container. And so you can now see it has kind of moved down. You can see from the image this section is over. So the next section we're going to have is the partners section. Let's write this comment just for you to be guided. So after this, we are going to have another section. We're gonna call this trusted partners. We're gonna create a div class and call it container, vertical padding of 5. Inside the container, we are going to create a div, and we give it a class of column medium, which is MD12. Another class called text center. We shall have a H1. Inside the H1, we are going to have a class display for. FW means font weight. We're going to give it the font weight of bold. And then we write the content, trusted. The word partners is in blue, so we're gonna put there a span tag, and I'm gonna give it a class of text primary, particular color. So that's our primary color, and then we shall put the word partners. Let's see how it turns out. So perfect. So this is what we have now. Let me close this, and also let me close this so that we have one thing. So we have our heading, trusted partner. Now the next thing, below the heading, we are going to create a paragraph which has, we partner with leading brands to drive traffic to your website, and we're gonna give it the class lead. So after this, let's create a row, and inside the row we are going to pretty much have the brand partners images. So create a div and give it a class called MD3, and we give it another class which is vertical padding of 3. Press enter. So inside this we are basically going to have image, and the source is images, our first partner which is Coca-Cola, and we're gonna give it an out of partner, and then we are gonna give it a class of img fluid so that it's responsive. So when we go back, this is what we have. We have Coca-Cola. So to save time, we are going to replicate this times 3. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it there, and paste it again, and then I'll just change the images here. So we have Google, we have Ford. So this is our trusted partners, and this section is done. So we are going to move on to the next section, which is basically about us. This is still within the same section. So we are basically going to create 2 rows, 1 container, 2 rows. I hope you're able to see. I've kind of reduced the size. So let's call this about section. In the about section, we are going to create a div and give it a class of container. Be careful of spelling. And also another class of vertical padding of 5. And then we shall give this an ID, which is about us. This ID will once again link to the nav items. So after this, I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to call it row. And then inside the row, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give it a column medium, that is MD6, and then vertical padding of 5. Sorry, this is supposed to be dot py5, and then inside this I'm gonna create a h2, and we're gonna give this a class display4 font weight. We're gonna give it bold, and we write our heading about us. Then below about us, we are basically going to have a paragraph. So I already have this paragraph ready, so I'm just going to copy and paste it here. So you can see within the paragraph, I added a span and gave it the text primary. And I already mentioned that the text primary is going to be our default brand color. So below the paragraph, let us create a call to action, which we are not linking to anything. And then we shall just put here, read more. And then let's give it a class of primary. So let's do class btn primary. So that's basically it. And this is what we have. And then the next section is going to be the image. Let me see. You can see beside it is just basically an image. So let's go back. You can see where this div started and stopped here. So we are going to create another div, and we give it call md6, and pretty much just add the image, which is img. We're gonna add the image source, which is images, and we have about.sfg, and then we're gonna give it a class of img fluid so that it is responsive, and the alt is about. So this is our about us section. So when we click here, we go to about us. We click here, we go back home. We click here, come to about us. See, so the ID here is simply about us. That's why it wasn't linking. So when you do this, you can see it's working. About us. Perfect. Now let's move to the next section, which is our services. So I'm gonna call this service section. So the service section pretty much has card. So we're gonna create a div, and we call it container fluid, and also give it a class vigilite. Be careful of spelling. And then we also give it another class of vertical padding of 5. So let's not forget the ID, which is services. I hope this is visible. So below the services, we are going to create a div. Let's call it container. And then let's create a row, and also align the text to center. Then we have h1, and all our h1s are going to take the class display. If you want, you can just copy from the other. Font weight bold, and we're gonna call this our, and then create another span services. So we're going to give the span a class of text primary. After that, we're gonna create a paragraph, and that is our service heading. So this is what we have. Now next is we are going to create the cards below the paragraph. So call md3 and vertical padding of 5, and then we're gonna create a div with a class. Let's give it card, and another class is That's height 11. And then we create another class with card body class. Inside the card body, we are going to create a h3, and we are going to give it the bold class, FW bold, and then we are going to give the title to our service. Our first service is SEO, and then we're gonna create a paragraph, but our paragraph is going to have the class lead. Then after the paragraph, let's create a call to action, which is we are giving it a class BTN primary. Inquire now. So we can use this, we can make this mail to. So we have mail to info@wesco.com. So basically this is our first card. Let's see how it looks. So this is our card. You can first replicate it and then style them all at once. We are going to replicate this div. You can see from the call MD. It starts from here to here. If you're not sure, you simply come here. So from here you can see. Let's just copy this whole div and then paste it. We're going to paste it one more time. Paste it. So that's what we have. Now we are just going to change these services. So the second service is PPC, pay-per-click. The next service is content marketing. And then the last service. Yeah, so this is what we have. Now let's go and style our cards. Pretty much we're just going to remove. So let's remove the border. None. Then let's give it a pseudo class. Let's give it a primary color. So the hover basically just does that. So you can see the texts are kind of close to each other. So we are going to kind of space the paragraphs. So this is basically our services. Go back home, go back to about us, go back to services. Now lastly we have the blog section. This also has pretty much cards. So we're not going to waste so much time here. We're just going to copy it and then change the content. So what we are going to do is we are going to copy the service section and replicate it to blog section and just modify a few things. So we're gonna call this blog section. And then we change the ID to blog. We don't have to waste so much time here. So I'm gonna change the title to our blogs. And then just change the content to read our recent news, blogs, and articles. We are going to change this to 4. Change this to 4. Change this to 4. And then remove the last one. We're going to remove this. Be careful while removing this. So if you're not sure, you can just come here and minimize it. Then from here, you know that's what we're getting rid of. After that, below the class card, we have image, we have blog image, and it has a class card img top. So this is what we have, but we are going to change this to the blog title. So we are going to copy, since here you see it's just the same image. Let's come back and just replicate this image. We are going to copy this image, and then below the card you paste it there. Also below the card class you paste it there, and then we're going to change the blog title. Paste. So the blog title is basically 5 ways to improve SEO of your website. So we're going to change this as well, and also it is H5 if you see. And then lastly we change this. So when we go back, yes, our blog section is done. Service, about us, home, blog. Then we have one last section, which is contact us. So if you take a look at the contact us section, it basically has an image and a section for form. So we are not going to waste so much time here in contact us. We are also going to get the heading here. So we are going to copy from here up to the heading here, since they are similar, and then we just kind of come and paste it there. Let's close our div. Let's close our div. We have 3 divs. So this one is closing the row, this one is closing the container, and this one is closing the container fluid. So let's change the heading to contact us. Then change the comment, the heading, change the paragraph, reach out to us for inquiries and questions. We shall change the ID to also contact. So this is what we have. Within the row, we are going to create a class and call it call MD6. And this pretty much has image, images, and we are going to link it to contactus.svg, and we're gonna give it a class of img fluid. And then we are going to create another div class called md6, and then inside this we are going to create a contact form. So if you don't want to waste so much time, we are basically going to go back to get Bootstrap, and you come here and search for forms. So you can see there are quite examples of forms here. So what we can do, we can just copy this instead of wasting much time. So I'm going to copy this form, and instead of having to type it all the way, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste it there, and then just remove the last one. So we pretty much have name. So we're going to just do this, replicate this, and just call it name, and change the label for name. The type is text, and then the second label is email address. The type is email, and the last label is message. We don't need password, so we're just gonna do here message. And then input type, we actually just going to create a text area here for the message. The name is message, no ID yet. We're gonna give it rows of 3, and we are going to give it the same ID as this. This is a Bootstrap example. Paste it there, and then we give it a class of form control. So you can see this goes into the center. The reason it goes to the center is because we put the entire row to have text center. So we're just going to remove this text center, and then we add it to the H1, and we also add it to what we want to be in the center. And here we have, so let's remove this checkbox. So let's go, we have the last, which is checkbox. So we're just going to remove it. We don't need it. And there we have our contact section. So when I go to blog, contact us, there is what we have. And then we have one final section, which is the footer. Then we call it a day. So you can see the footer is pretty much simple. It just has 3 rows and then one last section, which has the copyright. So let's go back to our code. Below this div, we have our footer section. So we're gonna write the footer tag, and we're just gonna give it the BG light. Give it a container class, vertical padding of 5. Let's also give it a row. Inside the row, we're gonna give containers. We're going to give them columns rather, MD4, PY5. For all our headings, we're gonna give them a display of 4, and our font weight is gonna be bold. And then the brand name, let's create a span, and the span class is gonna be text primary. So after that, we create a paragraph, and all our paragraphs, you've noticed, has the same class called lead. For contact us, let's remove the BG light. So this is what we have. Let's remove the space, just like that. Then next is we have contact us. Pretty much we are going to have the same thing. We're gonna copy this and then replicate it, and then replicate it. Here we're going to have contact us, follow us, and then here we are going to have contact us. So for the contact us, we basically have phone number, we have phone 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Let's copy this. We have email, which is info@wesco.com, and then we have address. Then for follow us, we have list items. So we are going to remove this paragraph, and we are just going to create an ordered list, and then put lists. And inside the list, we have anchor tag, which basically links to the social media platforms. So we're gonna have Facebook. So let's copy this, paste it, paste it, paste it. So we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, and we have YouTube. And just within the container for this, we're gonna create HR, and then below it, we're gonna create a paragraph and give it a class of text center, and then give it copyright 2023. Website refresh. So this is what we have, and then we have the copyright here. But we have one last thing. Let's try to just give some simple styles to this list items. So I'm gonna go back to our styles.css and let's style the lists. So since we don't have so much stuff, we're just gonna do the li and we give it a list style, give it none, and then the list items, which is lai, the anchor tags, we're just gonna give it text decoration none to remove the underline. So this is what we have, and from the image this is what we have. So when we review the website, let's go to home, about us, services, blog, contact us, and that is it. So guys, this is basically how you can play around with Bootstrap and come up with a simple landing page, and you can customize it to the way that you want. As you can see, we only have around 262 HTML lines, and we have about 44 lines of CSS. This is pretty simple, and thank you so much for watching. If you need this source code, feel free to check out the GitHub repository so that you can follow along. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing for more of this type of tutorials.